Greetings, brothers. The drought is over. 2 Blood Angels first place games in just over a week, a GTT and an RTT. If you want to be competitive and really push on and try and win events, then we're going to look at the synergies between these two lists. We're going to look at any overlaps, and we're going to know exactly what you have to take to help you to win a GT. So let's dive into this video. If we were just meeting, I'm John, the Blood Angels Commander, and on this channel every week we do various videos designed to help you get the most out of your Blood Angels. Sometimes we do other stuff as well, like painting, etc., or modelling. If you'd like to see more, then do consider subscribing. So, let's talk about the Kansas City Open first, and this was Zach Kerstetter. I hope I said that remotely close to being right. You guys know I suck at speaking in English. Anyway, Zach, congratulations on this first place GT win, and I believe this was an 8 wins, 0 losses. I did check it on Battlescribe and it says 4-0, but people have told me it's 8-0, so maybe it was like a 2-day event. Anyway, Zach is running a patrol and a vanguard attachment. Let's check out the patrol. He's got Dante in there as the warlord, 1 CP. This makes sense because you're going to get the command points back from the patrol detachment. He then has Lamartez, who has the Canticle of Hate for the +2 to charge, the Mantra of Strength, and also Litany of Hate. Now, there is sort of like a very contentious issue with Lamartez at the moment in that you can use Death Visions on him if you pay a CP to use the stratagem. He doesn't have the Death Visions keyword, but the stratagem is worded really badly, which means like if you in the stratagem asks for like a Death Company character. So if you pay the 1 CP, apparently Lamartez can use 2 Death Visions in a single turn. Jury's out on whether every tournament will allow that, but this tournament I believe was allowing it. We also have 1 squad of troops, and this is the only squad of troops in the whole list, in Cursors. And then we've got 2 of these 5-man Death Company with 4 hammers, and I guess if you don't have any of these 5-man Death Company with 4 hammers, these are right now are like such an important unit for Blood Angels. If you want to be competitive, they basically can almost trade up with just about anything in the game. They can double move if you got the Forlorn Fury. There's ways to get rerolls of +1 to hit. They always probably wound most things on 2s or 3s. These units are so important right now, and I kind of say, like, before we even look at the second list, Death Company with Thunderhammers are really, really core. Unfortunately, I don't have more of them, or I might run more of them, but like these guys are really important. For the Vanguard detachment, we've got the Sanguinary Priest with Rites of War, and we've seen the Sanguinary Priest with Rites of War for a while now. I think it's a very useful way of using the Sanguinary Priest. Use them, protect them with like some other units from Lookout Sir and stuff, and use Rites of War to help you flip objectives. Elite-wise, then we have a 5-man Death Company with just bolt pistols and chainswords. Once you get to turn 3, that's 30 chainsword attacks for 105 points. It's very decent. You have the Ancient, who's running Soul Warden and Wrath of Baal, and I really like having Soul Warden in this list. I like Soul Warden and the Priest, and I like them to be separate, giving you basically potentially protection against mortals army-wide if you position your characters well. We then do have 3 squads of Sanguinary Guard, 2 Infernal Pistols and 1 Infernal Pistol. I have been harping on for a while saying 1 Infernal Pistol in a squad is kind of useless because it's got no way to fire, so putting at least 2 in a squad helps. And also 7-man Sanguinary Guard, I believe that is the optimal number of Sanguinary Guard. 6 is okay, but I think 7 is the perfect number. For fast attack, we have 1 assault squad, and we do jump packs. We've got an Infernal Pistol and Lightning Claw on the Sergeant. I mean, you could easily change that out to a Power Sword, and then you've got a couple of Plasma Pistols. You've got 1 squad of Eliminators with the Bolt Carbine and the Last Fusel for the move, shoot, move. In practice, my experience tells me 1 squad of Eliminators, because you end up moving them, you only have 2 Last Fusels and you only hit on 3s. It doesn't feel that worth it for 75 points. But I mean, people are getting value out of them and they can perform actions, etc., etc. And they are very reliable or very survivable in cover. And then finally, we have a Whirlwind, which I believe was the MVP in the top table game. So the Whirlwind, although it does no damage most of the time, can actually still be really, really important in terms of Blood Angels winning events. Here's the scoring for the 4 games that BCP showed me. 92, 92, 91, and 75. And the final win was actually against Manny, and this was on Manny's Thousand Suns. And this was an interesting game. I believe you can watch it on their stream, and I did flick through it. But I think what you'll basically find is that like Manny was able to do a lot more wounds when he had targets, but most of the time, Blood Angels are so mobile, especially with Wrath of Baal, that the Thousand Suns matchup was actually kind of favourable here for the Blood Angels, and it's one of the armies that could actually deal with this Thousand Sun, Mortal Wound, spam pretty good. And also he picked a Bore the Witch. There's no Psyker here, so basically every unit of rubrics he was able to pick up was going to basically score like a couple of points for no prisoners and a point for a Bore the Witch. So it was a really good secondary choice, and this is the advantage to not having a Psyker in your list. And I think Blood Angels at the moment can go either way on a Psyker, and I think there's strength in both choices. So if this is a GT winning list, let's have a look at an RTT winning list. And this one was done by Chris. You guys know Chris. He's on the channel multiple times talking over his lists. He did the Centurions maybe just a couple of months ago. We had him on the channel. Chris is now doing some battle reports on YouTube. So I'm going to put a link in the video description to Chris's channel if you want to check out some of his battle reports. I actually don't know how often he is live, but you could click down below and there'll be a link in my video description. So this is Chris's list, and he was kind enough to send this over to me. He is also doing Dante and the Warlord, and I think Dante and the Warlord kind of is very useful. I mean, like, CP are really prime, or, you know, CP are always useful. Dante is, although he has weaknesses in other areas, he's great for CP, in that he can do stuff for free, and also that he generates one. Chris also has the Sanguinary Priest with Rites of War. However, Chris makes his a little bit more survivable with Armour of Domitus. I actually don't think an Armour of Domitus is a bad choice here. The Priest with 4 wounds and only a 3+ save dies pretty quickly. So I guess giving him 5 wounds and a 2-up Armour of Contempt save actually probably adds quite a lot of reliability, plus the ability to turn on that 3-up Invulnerable save. Remember, the Priest can't feel no pain on himself, so he also has that 6-up Shrug. Chris was running the Librarian with a jump pack, and he was running sanguinary powers. So we've got Unleash Rage, we've got Blood Boil, and we've got Wings. And I think this is probably the best 3 choices at the moment, because Unleash Rage is basically a great buff in terms of damage output. Wings makes your Psyker super mobile, and I guess with this Psyker having a jump pack, he was basically able to use a 24-inch Visage of Death, jump forward, mess up people's OBSEC. And then Blood Boil is a targeted smite, but it does require you to basically cast it twice because you've got to roll over the enemy toughness. So Blood Boil is nice, it's targeted. In actual gameplay, for me, it's felt pretty unreliable. But he has also got the Soul Warden here, so he's got the same Soul Warden bubble and the Feel No Pain bubble from the Priest. Chris has gone with a couple of squads of Infiltrators and an Assault Intercessor squad, so I guess he's got more screening in the backfield, which is fine. His list works a little bit different. He's kept those 5 Centurions, and he's got some company veterans just with Chainswords and Storm Shields. He's got that 5-man Thunderhammer Death Company we talked about, and then he's got 3 squads of 6 Sanguinary Guard. He's actually leaned a little bit heavier on axes, so maybe Armour of Contempt isn't very common in his meta, and if it isn't, then axes are the right choice. Otherwise, I think probably you want to lean a little bit more on swords. And these are notably 6, where I did mention earlier, I think 7 is the optimal number. I run 6 as well, so it really just comes down to points. You know, sometimes you've got to give and take a bit when you're making an army list. He's running 2 squads of Eliminators. Last Fusel in both, and he said Quake Bolts on 1, but he said in practice he actually didn't get too much value out of this Quake Bolts pickup. And when you think about it, the Quake Bolts pickup would probably actually be much better for the other lists, because he's got the 3 squads of Death Company, and 2 of them hit on 4s with the Thunderhammers. So Quake Bolts here, I still think Quake Bolts is a good unit, or a good relic to pick up. For 1 CP, it can give multiple times throughout the game. It can give you additional damage. So it's definitely a useful relic. I've run it a bunch, and I think it's good on anything with a ballistic skill 2-up. But I mean, sometimes I guess certain matchups, depending on terrain, it might be hard to get value out of the Quake Bolts. So the overlap here then, the Sanguinary Guard squads obviously overlap. The Death Company overlap. Dante and the Sanguinary Priest overlap. The other stuff on both lists, one list goes for sort of like the Whirlwind for potentially fight last, no interrupts. One other thing the Whirlwind does, no Overwatch. The other list, Chris's list here, does basically a big blob of Centurions down the middle and Infiltrators to screen out the backfield. So 2 slightly different lists. I think the first list is possibly going to be more likely to win GT, and I mean, it was the one that won a GT, but I think that we've seen a few people try the Centurions in GTs, and we haven't seen that 5-man block of Centurions win GT yet. I think it's good, the 5-man block of Centurions, don't get me wrong, and I think in some ways like the enemy have to deal with the Centurions, because if they don't, the Centurions are just going to wreck anything that they charge into. So the Centurions do need dealt with. My experience though of playing Centurions is just they're kind of slow. I don't really have a justifiable reason of playing them. I just think that, like, I guess it's not for me, right? And I guess that's the thing that I just want to say about this list is if we look at, like, both the lists together, and if we look at, like, what Blood Angels are playing in events, then I would say, like, 80 or 90% of the lists. And if you've been watching my Army List show on the weekends, you'll see that there's so much overlap in Army Lists right now. And that's one of the things that we're going to come to a little bit later on in the video, so make sure you watch the end so you can see my full reaction. Anyway, what's my learnings from looking at these two lists? Bear in mind, these are the first two lists we've looked at that have won tournaments since Armour of Contempt. I think we've seen a bunch of tournaments being played since Armour of Contempt. Maybe there's an RTT or something, or you know what, maybe there was a GT that snuck through and a Blood Angels player did win, and if I missed some Blood Angels player winning an event before now in terms of like the Armour of Contempt era, then I'm sorry. In the future, if you win an event, please just reach out to me. You can get my email address. You can literally email me or leave a comment on pretty much any of my videos, and I will respond. I try and respond to every comment that I get. I mean, that's pretty mental when I have 10,000 subscribers now, but I do still do it, right? So like, if you message me, I will get back to you. Okay, learnings. CP seem much less important. Both these lists are starting on like 1 and 2 CP. What we need CP for in Blood Angels right now is Forlorn Fury, Suppression Fire, Counteroffensive, maybe Angel Sacrifice, Hammer of Wrath. Like, I think beyond that, I mean, I guess Dante could fight on death, but we don't need CP for that. Beyond those 5 stratagems, we don't really need to play much else, or there's very few situations where we need much else. Maybe Heroic Intervention with Sangry Guard. So I think there's like 6 or 7 strats. Fortunately, most of them are 1 CP, but Blood Angels don't need a whole lot of strats. And I've been noticing that in the new Nephilim, in that most of the time I'm reaching the end of the game and I've got 3 or 4 CP left. Unless it's like a very close game, usually I seem to have plenty of CP. And I don't run Dante, so I guess if you run Dante, you have even more CP. 3 times Sangry Guard are really important. They're the kind of the core of the whole list. 6s or 7s, but honestly, I think if you're a new player or if you're still getting your feet, run the 7s. The 7s are much more likely to just do that extra bit of damage, finish a unit off. I think the 6s probably need played by a player with a bit more experience. And the 5 Death Company with hammers, like they are needed for sure, at least 1 squad. I mean, when I say 5 Death Company hammers, we're talking 4 hammers usually. You can run 5 hammers if you want. Usually my experience tells me 4 hammers and a chainsword with some sort of re-rolls, and Assault Doctrine kills just about anything. But yeah, you could run 5 hammers, but I think 1 squad is 100% needed. Possibly, again, if you're not the strongest player, you might want 2 squads. I think I kind of need to run 2 squads. Like, they're just... Death Company and Sangry Guard are the most important thing for us right now. They're the best. The points cost, they do the most damage. That's what we need to be running. Both these lists have minimal fire support. Eliminators move, shoot, move. Ever since move, shoot, move is a thing with the Las Fusils and they got drop points, they seem to be very, very popular. I've tried running Eliminators a bunch of times. For me, they usually end up actually just screening another unit from being charged. They very rarely do any damage. And they screen units for 75 points. And if someone can mop up 75 points of Eliminators and that keeps a 165 point Death Company or a 200 point Sangry Guard unit completely fine because they're screened by the Eliminators, I guess that's 75 points well spent. But that seems to be what I use Eliminators for. They don't typically do a lot of damage. In the GT, the Whirlwind was the MVP according to the winner's interview, and this is literally vindication, because the amount of times someone's come on this channel and told me the Whirlwind's a bad choice, why are you including a Whirlwind, you know nothing about Blood Angels because you've included a Whirlwind, and like any other variants of that rhetoric, I guess. This really is vindication. So cue the Captain Holt meme, vindication! So, Whirlwind, it's still a good choice. It's always been a good choice. It doesn't do damage. The winner said this in his interview as well. 90% of the time it doesn't do damage. It's not there to do damage. Brilliant. Glad to see someone win an event with the Whirlwind. Thank you for doing that, Zach. I appreciate it. Someone will probably flame me for this video. Someone might actually flame Zach in this video, but that's beside the point. Anyway, 4 characters can win an event, because they obviously did it here with Zach. However, if you notice his characters, we're barely over 500 points. Sometimes we see people take like 4 characters, you're pushing like 575 points, you're pushing 600 points. I guess 4 characters, you're going to use them to Angel Sacrifice to protect other units, but again, don't go crazy. If you're spending over 500 points on characters, you're taking away a lot of your list. So I guess spending your points really wisely is important. Soul Warden and Rights of War are in both lists. I've been saying for a while, these things are auto-includes. You need them. You need them even more if you're going to run Patrol and Vanguard and you only have 1 unit of OBSEC troops. Rights of War is going to save or make or break your game. So, yes, we knew that. Soul Warden and Rights of War are auto-includes. So, once the game begins, mainly, we're going to be doing like Angel Sacrifice, Hammer of Wrath, and I guess I should add the Heroic Intervention for Sanguinary Guard. I forget what that's called now. God, I forget what it's called. I use it often, but yeah, you need to remember to use those. Those are your 3 stratagems. So it's called Unbridled Ardor, and I think the thing that made me forget there for a second was because Ardor usually means like defense. So I don't really know why that's the name of the stratagem, but regardless, we can land either way on Psychers. Not taking a Psyker is going to give you Abhor the Witch. Taking it is going to give you speed buffs and also denies, to potentially deny psychic actions or deny really nasty powers. And there are plenty of nasty powers flying around in the meta. Stuff like Harlequins doing 6 mortal wounds in a single psychic cast. Denying that is going to be huge. And, you know, denying that even on top of like having Soul Warden or the Priest is all going to add up and help you take less damage over the course of the game. So Rights of War seems to be picked a lot on the Sanguinary Priest, and it's supported by Dante, and I guess this is basically going to equate to like a net 0 in terms of CP cost, which I actually really like. I think Dante has become more viable in Nephilim. I think before you necessarily didn't need him. I didn't like his Warlord trait before, which you don't need to take now. So yeah, I mean, I might even run Dante to GTT in 2 weeks myself, so this is... The day this video goes out, my list submission for my GT must go in, so there's a very high chance I'll take Dante, and I'll probably take Rights of War on the Priest. And I was doing that for a little while anyway. I think the Sanguinary Ancient is a great character for Rights of War as well, but I mean, it depends on if you want to do something like Soul Warden on the Ancient, because some people are doing that. And I think it is good to split Soul Warden away from the Priest, because if you don't split Soul Warden away from the Priest, then you lose some of the overlappingness of that Feel No Pain / mortal protection. So Unleash Rage is our best psychic power. We all knew that. I didn't actually realise this week that like Unleash Rage is better than reroll 1s. And it makes sense, right? Because like if you hit on 4s rerolling 1s, every miss that is a 1, you need to reroll a 4+. But every 6 you roll is just an additional auto hit. So if you are taking something that is like rerolling 1s, like a captain or something, then just bear in mind that Unleash Rage is actually statistically more damage. And I didn't realise that. I thought they were equal. But it does make perfect sense. Unleash Rage is really good. And Blood Boil does get picked, even though it's poor in reliability. I don't think Quickening is all that useful because... I think you're usually just going to be better off smiting than quickening, and I always make that mistake. I always cast quickening, and I think it's a bad thing to cast. So I think not having quickening is a good idea. Blood Boil is fine, and Blood Lance is also terrible. So Wings, Unleash Rage, Blood Boil seem to be the 3. And then sitting for multiple turns and playing KG is Blood Angels. And I've been advocating this for years now actually on my channel, that like in a lot of my games I could be 20 points behind in turn 1 and 2, but I'd be okay if most of my units were on the board. And if you've seen some of my recent games, I'm getting very, very good now at deploying where the enemy goes first and they don't get to shoot anything because everything is obscured. So like learn to obscure your troops and learn to sort of wait potentially for Assault Doctrine. In the list that won the GT Zach's list, I kind of love it because what you could do is in turn 1, you could send out a Forlorn Fury Death Company, Chapter Master rerolls Assault Doctrine, right? Turn 2, and that could be your 4 Thunder Hammers. I mean, maybe if there's a weak target that you want to take out the chainswords, do that for sure. But then you could do that again in turn 2. Yeah, or you could do that with another of the Death Company in turn 2, or one of the squads of Sanguinary Guard. So in like turn 1 and 2, you're only sending out like 1 unit, maybe to trade, flip an objective, do some killing, and then once we get into turn 3 and we know a ton of charges are going to happen, that's when we can use the Whirlwind to prevent some sort of counter-offensive from a scary unit, and we can make multiple charges and push on and generally like go ahead and win the game. So congratulations to both Zach and Chris, and it's finally nice to see some Blood Angels players win some events. I just want to say, before we finish off this video, that I didn't love the balance data slate. I really didn't love the balance data slate, and these 2 lists in some ways cement how I feel. So if you've enjoyed what you've learned so far, and you think that this video has helped you and it's going to make you build a better list, then great. Now would be the time to like the video and subscribe. If you want to stick around for a couple of minutes of ranting, that is what I'm going to speak about now. I really don't want to piss anybody off, but it very well may happen, and I just want to tell you guys where I am right now with this, with 9th edition and with the state of Blood Angels. So I just wanted to say that I think the recent change to shock tactics has done nothing for Blood Angels, and I think that seeing list after list after list of Eliminators, Whirlwinds, Sanguinary Guard, Death Company, Dante, and the Sanguinary Priest, like let's put those 6 things on a pedestal and say like every single Blood Angels list has those 6 things, and those 6 things take up, let's say, 1,500 points of every single list. Which actually means that, like, if you're new to Blood Angels, or if you are, I don't want to say bored is the wrong word, if you play Blood Angels all the time, like I do, you basically get shoehorned into, if you want to be competitive, you take those 6 things, and almost everything else you do is irrelevant because those 6 things dominate 80%, 90% of your list, and you can play with 1 or 2 units maybe, and you can have a little bit of fun. But I think the thing that bothers me is we have a codex of 50 units at least, a lot of new Primaris units which are exciting and new and people want to buy and people want to field, but like, why are all those other units completely crap? I don't even really know where I'm going with this. I just want to say that the balance data slate is not addressing the fact that yes, you can have a 49% win rate at tournament, and yes, Blood Angels can have armies that can win events, but to have that army that can win event, you literally have 1 build. I mean, there's a small variance on it, let's say 5, like I said, 10, 20%, something like that. But your build to win an event needs to have 3 Sanguinary Guard, it needs to have Dante, it needs to have a Priest, it needs to have Eliminators or Whirlwind, you know, it needs to have Rites of War, it needs to have Soul Warden. It's like, the actual fun of building competitive lists is almost irrelevant if you wanted to be competitive with Blood Angels. It's like, that's the thing that is frustrating me at the moment. The recent changes to shock tactics are like a non-change for me. I'm actually most excited at the moment about playing the new boarding party. So I'm gonna, as soon as that comes out, I'm gonna buy and play some boarding party on the channel. It'll be something new on the channel. It'll spice things up a bit, and maybe it'll give me a little bit of time to be less upset about the fact that, like, theory crafting and building lists is one of the funnest things that we have. However, there's far too many units that are not good or overcosted or ignored edition on edition or chapter approved on chapter approved, and as such, we're shoehorned into one of these 2 lists. So yeah, I'll continue to cover the winning lists, and I guess, like myself, you can pick out the trends in these lists and you can make really strong lists that you want to play. However, just be aware that, like, at the moment, there isn't as much variance in Blood Angels as I would like, and I don't really think that an army that has 50 plus units, I mean, I don't actually know how many units there are, but I mean, like, if you factor in all the Forge World models as well, there's probably at least 100 different units. So an army with 100 different units, you shouldn't have to pick 6 of them in every battle to be competitive. That's my 2 cents. Take it or leave it. I know that some people are fine running that. If you're fine running that, great. I've run lists with 3 Sangre Guard. I've run lists with 2 Death Company, and I've run them for a couple of years now in and about. And sometimes you want to switch up, and I just feel like it's just very one-dimensional, and that's fine. Combined with the fact that there's like 6 good stratagems, there's 6 good units for this giant army that has loads of options. I'm struggling to find the words. I just want to put out there that I am frustrated. Take that as you may. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it, because that's kind of why we're here doing what we do. If you do want to support the channel, I do really appreciate it. I generally try to always make really positive content that is uplifting and looks at other units in a vacuum and tells you if they're viable and good. And I will continue to do that. And I will keep my fingers crossed that 10th edition is going to just do a lot better for Marines and maybe give us a handful of viable builds or a handful of viable units. I hope to catch you guys in the next video. By the blood are we made strong, brothers. Peace.